Welcome to episode 2 of Making an Edit, a short series where I make a new edit from scratch and you get to see how it's made. If you're not caught up, go watch episode 1, which covered recording and preparation, the first step to creating any edit. Today's episode will focus on the main editing. This is where we take our recorded angles and make them flow with the song. If you're not an editor, this part of the editing process may be hard to get used to. Flow is something particular to each editor, but this is just how I do it. Unfortunately, I ended up doing this part of the edit without recording myself because I completely forgot to. However, there was one unedited part because I went to re-record angles, so I can at least show you how I sync here. First thing to do is to determine your sync points. This will help you with the clip placement and flow. For velocity, I use Twixtor, although it's not necessary for Paragon since you can record at 0.1 speed anyway. You can use time remap instead, which would be better, but I've been using Twixtor for years, so I'm not just going to switch over my workflow overnight. And Twixtor is still good on Paragon clips because there aren't any frame drops or warping if you don't go below 100% speed, which is what I do. In this case, 100% speed in Twixtor would be the real-time speed of the recording, which is 0.1, which is slow enough. Next, locate each clip event, as I mentioned in the last episode, that you want to use in this part and sync it with the markers. The main part of the editing will be to fill the gaps with velocity and make it flow well. Almost every clip segment will look something like this, so you want to go in your keyframe editor and bend the 3 keyframes you see here to form a smooth U shape. This is for Twixtor anyway. I don't really know how it looks for time remap, but this is how I do it. That way the angle comes in fast, slows down near the middle, then speeds up again at the end, into the next angle. When it comes to flow, it's important to not be linear. You always want a U, not a V. Changing what you sync to is one of the important things to do in order to have good flow. Keep in mind this is just what I think about it. Mine is probably terrible compared to others. But for example, throughout most of the song I sync to the kicks, but sometimes I sync to something else. Even if you switch your sync points, you need to make sure that your angle movement is smooth. Depending on the length of your edit, this might be a very boring and repetitive process, which is why I don't show you the entire thing, but it's worth it in the end. Something I consider to be part of flow is the transition in between angles. Normally in edits you see something like a pan crop transition between every single clip, but for this edit I feel like doing something different than what I normally do. So we're going to put a very short crossfade over each segment instead of the usual pan crop that I would do. That way one angle doesn't cut over to the next one. Something to always consider for transitions is that it doesn't always have to be the same thing. Most of my transitions will be 3 to 5 frame crossfades, but I could do a match cut or a luma fade or something just to throw off the viewer and make it more interesting. For example, when Muriel dies, I do a very slow crossfade instead of the usual 3 frame one, just to make it different. And that is pretty much it for creating the flow of the edit. I won't go into detail and show you how I edit every single keyframe of this edit because I think that would just be boring, so as I mentioned before, this is just to give you an overview on how I edit. And here's what we have so far. Just the clips and the song, nothing else. The last few elements, VFX and SFX, will be for the next and final episode, which should be a lot shorter than this one.